Where would you like? It don't, you can be in the middle. I let him be near his splinties.
Good afternoon, everyone. If everyone could take a seat, because we got a treat for you. We don't want to keep you long here. It's another great day God has provided us with to be here and fellowship with one another, to be able to gain and get some good information from one of Flint's favorite friends, which is the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson's here. And we give her a round of applause for providing lunch. You know, that was it must not be a great lunch. That wasn't a very good lunch. But with that said, understanding that we're here in the city of Flint, which is a historic dome, and we're going to be doing a lot of work here this year. That's our fabulous screen coming down. But definitely we want to honor our own city clerk, Davina Donahue. Give her a round of applause for being here. The level of business that we have to conduct throughout the year is very task-oriented. But we have to have a direction, and we have to have a game plan in order to construct the infrastructure of work and great work throughout our state of Michigan. We have to have input. We have to have input from our stakeholders. And that's why we invited all of you. Many of you are staff here in the city of Flint, but other stakeholders across Genesee County. We are one of 33 units of government inside of Genesee County, but we are the largest community inside of Genesee County. Our friend Jocelyn Benson has been here multiple times to be able to gain input from us about how we can improve services for our great residents, not only in the city of Flint, but also Genesee County and the state of Michigan. A person, a colleague that I trust, and we want to make sure we take this great opportunity in our Q&A to be able to provide some level of good information. Also joining us today is the wonderful, and I can also say beautiful, State Representative Cynthia Neeley from the 70th District, only because I know her a little bit outside of the realm of government, right? And so we're doing those things, and then also some of our newest members of our Flint team, I call them Flinties on duty, right? Flinty the Fox is here, our police Flinty and our fire Flinty, and Flinty's on duty, and they're here with us today. And Mother Jones, I got your special Flinty for you today. You'll be getting that. And also we have Bishop Martin here and other people here. So I'm going to give it the opportunity to give it to the State Representative, Cynthia Neeley, before we turn it over to our great friend and our guest here, Jocelyn Benson. State Representative Neeley.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for having me here and being a part of this today. As you know, I am over the 7th District, and that's in the entire city of Flint, part of Flint Township, and also part of Burton, and a little of Monday. That's how far we have expanded our territory. I'm here today to support our Secretary of State. She has been nothing but wonderful up there at the state of Michigan. Anytime that she had any legislation that she wanted to push forward, we made sure that we got it across the line for her, because we know that she is here for our citizens, and so we are here for her. As you know, going into this year, as a Democrat, we are in the minority. So we'll be going up the hill at this time, but we are going to continue to work very hard for my constituents. So anything that you may be needing, make sure you call our office. We would be here to help you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative, and thank you, Mayor. I'm in between the dream team here. Happy to be here as well. A lot of you guys know me for a long time, and really want to thank my team. Joshua Elliott is here, our Director of External Affairs, and you also have the great Sherry Hardman, who is here or out working, who you know very well, comes from Flint and is now our senior press secretary. And so I'm grateful to be here today, really to touch base on a couple of things. One, to thank your great clerk, Davina. Thank you for your incredible leadership this cycle. It's now in the sort of post-election period, but we had an incredibly smooth election here in Flint. Wanted to hear your thoughts and feedback on as well, because as you know, the work of elections never stops, and we want to make sure in every election Flint citizens know how important your voices are and how much we want to make sure they're heard. And secondly, as the Chief Motor Vehicle Officer for the state of Michigan, it's critically important to me that you all are having access to state services, whether it's renewing your license or getting a plate or transferring a vehicle title, that we're doing everything we can to meet you where you are and make government work well for you. I'm really proud that under my leadership, our department has become the most efficient Department of Motor Vehicle Services in the nation. We've eliminated wait times. We've made it easier for you to get renew your tabs and get on with your day. But I want to make sure that we continue to listen and show up where you need us to show up. We have a mobile branch office that just serves this region. And whether you have, centers where you're serving people in need, or centers where people who aren't able to travel to a branch office or in need of services, we want to show up for you in those places and all across the city and all across the region. So please let us know if we can bring those mobile offices to you, and we want to hear feedback about that as well. And then finally, I'm here to listen and to hear what you all have to say. It's never lost on me how important it is to, given the history of Flint, both recent and long history, to really celebrate this city and all that it's given this state. And to do that by making sure we continually at the state level show up for all of you. You deserve to live in a city and a state where not just where government works well and is an efficient and smooth transaction, but also where you're safe, where your government is making sure we're doing everything we can to keep you safe in the workplace, in schools, at your home, and everywhere in between. And as a mom, I'm also here to just listen about your vision for the future of our city and state as well. And in that regard, in my role as Secretary of State, what I can do to make sure we're continuing to invest in our cities, in Flint and elsewhere, so that Michigan is the best place to be a kid, raise a kid, and call home. So all that said, love to hear from all of you as well. And I'll also just say one last thing too, and then turn it back to you, Mayor. This is a moment for celebration when we look back on the election of 2024. And you may be thinking, why is that? The reason is because Michigan saw the highest turnout in our state's history in that election. We saw high turnout, not just here in Flint, but all across the state. And here in Flint, you all had your results counted, those ballots counted, those results out sooner than ever before. So great job. We celebrated with you at 10 o'clock on election night when that last ballot was transmitted and tabulated. And so again, well done. Congratulations on a smooth, successful election, and interested in hearing from all of you of what you would like to see from your government next.
Right, and as we move forward, little housekeeping rules are in order, but we ask questions, not make statements, but then definitely we'll try to best answer the question that you present. And if we cannot fulfill the answer that you need, we can also have a level of follow-up. We have a lot of staff here to be able to help us with that specializes in every area. But definitely we want to talk about how we can enhance and improve a system in our society, right? Secretary of State is a broad range of activities that goes on there, not just voting. But voting is an important part of our democracy and the structure of government, which we know it here in the United States. But definitely when we talk about on the ground, we need to make sure that we can take care of the things that's in front of us. And you guys represent just that. And I'll start out with the first question as a surrogate of another person that asked a question earlier. Morgan Neeley's here, but she works at the Wellness Center, and she works with a lot of people in the at-risk population or the vulnerable population. But gaining access to an ID or a driver's license can sometimes be cumbersome, more so because people don't understand the system. And the frustration becomes because where's the pathway? How do we make an appointment? How can we get those individuals? And then when they have advocates on their side, how can they direct them to the resources that they need to make it more efficient and less frustrating for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. That's an important question, and thank you, Morgan, also for the work that you do. It's really important. It's saving lives, changing lives, and I want to make sure we're doing everything we can to support you and anyone who's similarly working to deliver services, health services, educational services to residents who need them. Our mobile office can simply just show up wherever you're serving populations. We've done this in senior centers. We've done this in Salvation Army, Goodwill, and other types of locations. We actually also have a Road to Restoration clinic that will be getting your license restored. There are thousands of Michiganders who are able to drive and due to changes in the law can have their licenses restored if they've had them taken away in the past for various reasons, and those clinics are a way to restore those licenses. So if you're working with individuals who perhaps have previously had a license or ID and have lost it, those restoration clinics, we'd happy to bring one to Flint in this first quarter, can provide an opportunity for people to just show up at a location that's familiar to them and have those services. And so our team here can figure out all that we can do more, but certainly meeting people where they are is a central tenet to our office. And we're here today, in some cases, for you to tell us where we need to show up, where people are, so that we can make sure we're doing that and delivering those critical IDs and other services to residents so that they can be empowered to achieve their full potential.
Right, and we'll have a mic roaming through for your questions. And the dome is very, very good, and acoustically we're great in this environment. But if you could just raise your hand for a question, and these questions are all being recorded, so we can go back and be able to try to perfect a recipe for success as we deliver services for residents in the great state of Michigan. Any questions? Yes.
Canton resident, I wrote half of the like me in the greater Detroit. And on Saturday, there's the city of Flint as well, because I saw it as I was driving in. So on Saturday, I saw a man that was homeless on Fisher Freeway at 12th Street. I then went out and bought some items. On Sunday, I came back down to Detroit and passed out 150 pairs of hand warmers, 44 pairs of foot warmers. On my own, the citizens not care. What is being done about this massive homeless problem in the state of Michigan?
Do you want to talk about that at all, Representative?
No.
Well,
We lost
you said massive homeless population inside of Michigan. It's definitely something that we're looking at nationwide. This is not just a issue here in this region, the state of Michigan, but on a cooperative level for the state of Michigan and the legislators there, the Secretary of State, and also municipalities. But on the municipal side, if you drive through the city of Flint, I just got through talking with Bishop Martin. He said on his drive in, he saw so many new housing complexes going up, right? We talk about affordable housing, but definitely we're doing these mixed-use housing developments all throughout the city of Flint, and new dollars are being engaged and activated through high-minded legislative activity and funding that's coming from our federal government through the operations of CDBG dollars, HUD dollars, and different things of that nature. Right now, we have a great focus here in the city of Flint of providing those level of housing, not only for those low to moderate income families, but definitely veterans. Right on the corner of Saginaw and Stewart, my whole life, that area I grew up in, there's just been a guy there selling fruit and nuts and berries and different things of that nature. But we just did a groundbreaking a couple months ago in partnership with Catholic Charities for veteran housing in that space. Communities First program, and if you look at University Avenue, there we have new housing there, and also new housing on Ballinger and Flushing. But what we need more than anything, when we talk about what are we doing, it has to be a cooperative effort on everybody. We need the level of partnerships. I just named 3 partners. I know Catholic Charities, Community First, HUD. So the recipe for success, it requires all of us to have a level of input. And so we look at our unified thinking and making sure that we have good information and work from that good information, we can be able to eradicate a level of this housing problem. And inside the city of Flint, as we do a level of high demolition, my mindset is already what we're going to put there. Tiny homes, bungalows, container homes. Stick builds are so expensive, but definitely right now we're modifying our land space to have what we call ready lots, modulars to come in and set up in 2 or 3 days. If you look on 5th Avenue, right by La Familia Taco House, in partnerships with the land bank in Genesee County, you see these new duplexes. They brought them in and dropped them on the foundation. And so dollars and cents have to be engaged, but definitely we have to have a partnership with the community to be able to engage that space. And then Secretary Benson, she'll make sure we'll get your address changed very quickly once you get your new house.
It's true. Yes, exactly. Team
Can I
effort.
address another social issue?
Well, if I could, I'd love to add, but thank you for your point. I would say I've been travel around the state. We have 130 offices in every corner of the state, and it's very clear to me that we have a housing crisis, an affordability crisis, not just here in Flint, but in rural areas, the Upper Peninsula, and that relates to the homelessness crisis as well. And it's, as the mayor said, not just Michigan; it's nationwide. But there are active conversations among leaders in the lawmakers, legislature, at the executive level about all the different partnerships we need to build to address this housing crisis.
The other issue I want to address, I am a literacy advocate.
Mm.
And to your point, Mayor Neeley, it's a national epidemic crisis in urban communities. After the MSTEP scores came out last year, I sent 105 letters to every single representative that serves Detroit, Michigan, and Wayne County area. I got a reply back from 5. Senator Stabenow, Senator Peters, my representative out of Livonia, the Deputy Chief of Police, well, Deputy Mayor at the time, now interim police. If the elected officials don't care, it explains why the educational proficiency literacy scores are bad as they are. Every one of those persons I sent a letter to should have replied.
Mm. Yeah, I think, my parents were special education teachers. I live in the city of Detroit. I've seen in many ways the critical importance of us prioritizing literacy for every age. So I appreciate you raising awareness about it and doing that work. And I agree, it has to be front and center for every leader in the state to be trying to address this and solve that issue and developing unique and groundbreaking, bold solutions to get there. So thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you. And just so you all know, everyone does have an index card under your chair. So if you have a question, feel free to write it down. Just raise your hand and we'll come to you.
Thank you, Representative. My name is Jocelyn Benson. I'm a recently graduated alumni from the University of Michigan, and I'm really proud of what we have all did when it comes to civic engagement and democratic engagement. I was part of both Secretary of State's task force, police supervisor task force, and also was very active when it came to community engagement. For example, Flint Post, where the mayor actually came up and spoke. I'm really appreciative of what we did. For example, when it comes to Flint Post, we knocked on 1,841 doors, and we made it to the turnout in Jackson County up compared to 2020. We explained everything. I'm really proud of that. The main question I'm asking is the best thing about that was community, was both the collaboration both with officials from the university administration, community administrations, but also the engagement of young people during that time. And I feel like now that the election is over, and as you said that it's always going to be busy, and it's just stay busy. A lot of people are going to be more disengaged and more left out when it comes to civic.
State legislator, and currently with state representative is a legislator. We did an education course, a voter literacy course, right? Engaging people, helping them understanding what's on the ballot. What is the Board of Regents? What does that mean? What does that take part of? We're preparing the curriculum right now. We're going to be back in the Flint Public Schools next week, starting Monday, teaching a class. I'm teaching a class once a month. The state representative is teaching a class once a month, engaging on elementary, junior high, and high school. And that was birthed out of what you did. We came in and took a part in it, but we have to be able to have this voter education piece. And I know Bishop Martin he's been opening up his church, and Mother Jones and Bishop Jones have opened up their church so we can get an area of education for a 45-minute tutorial. Now, I look out in this audience, and some of you guys are a little bit younger than me, but not many, because I'm pretty young. But how many of you guys remember Schoolhouse Rock? Right? A bill is not a bill until it becomes a law, right? So every Saturday morning when I ate that anytime meal cereal, you sat there and you watched cartoons, and Schoolhouse Rock was able to engage us as young people, so we knew how to be able to have a question and an answer about how processes are made. That's what State Representative Cynthia Neeley does every day. She makes a bill. It has to get out of committee. If it gets out of committee, it has to go off the floor. And then it starts over in another chamber in another committee. And then it has to get out of that committee, and it has to go to the floor. And then it gets out of that floor, then you have to have a governor sign it. I used to call it 56, 21, and 1. I needed 56 votes in the House, I needed 21 in the Senate, and I needed one governor to sign it. Now, I used to hold the record in this area for the most pieces of legislation written until State Representative Cynthia Neeley came along, but you had to put an asterisk by her name because she was partially 34th and then now 70th. So I hold the record for the 34th because I'm not going to count the 70th in that portion of legislative activity. But we get our ideas from you, and that's why this engagement is important. And just about the literacy piece, we started to open up a library on the north side in the Flint Development Center, which is formerly the old Bunch Elementary School, because there was no brick and mortar library inside the city of Flint outside of the culture district, right? And so we opened it up, and what we have is a backdoor literacy program. So individuals can come in to be able to gain a level of understanding with some things that they needed to have in the literacy place. Much like many people inside the city of Flint, my grandparents migrated here from the southern portions of our country for good manufacturing jobs. My grandfather was a great provider, but did not graduate from high school, probably did not graduate from junior high school. But he came here to make a great living for his family. But when he retired out, he still had that same level of education. And so when we look at where we got to move our communities forward, we have to provide that levels of opportunity for these individuals to provide good information, consistent information, and making sure we have these courageous conversations with each other to be able to make sure we can advance that. And that's why I really support our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, because she has made it very, very accessible to be able to engage these pieces.
Thank you so much, Secretary Benson, for being here. So we know that Prop 2 played a big part in helping to get the vote out due to the early voting, permanent absentee list you're on, absentee ballot. However, there still is a disconnect between community understanding all of the benefits of Prop 2 and there. What do you see the Secretary of State doing to help us do this as we deal with smaller but more meaningful elections that will be coming up in the near future?
Yeah, that's such an important question, and I don't know if the clerk wants to say anything as well on that. A couple of things. The proposals that were enacted in 2018 and 2022 by voters all across the state of Michigan have transformed democracy in the state. And as you point out, Proposal 2 in 2022 in particular created 9 days of early voting in every statewide election from here on out in our Constitution. So statewide elections, the next one is in 2026 in the primary and in the general that year. Those are now required under law to provide 9 days of early voting. And in 24, over 1 million people voted at an early voting center in that early voting period, which is it was the first time we've ever had that in the state. And so we didn't know if like 5 people would use it or if 100 people would use it, and to see over 1 million people show up was really encouraging and shows we're on the right track. But you're right, we can't take our foot off the gas. So in elections, one of the challenges will be in local elections, making sure people know you always have the right to get your ballot and return it. Those in-person early voting centers may not be in place in local elections. Is that right, clerk? Or do you know what you might be planning for local elections yet? So stay tuned. Local communities get to choose whether they provide that in-person ability to cast your vote early during a non-statewide election. So we'll be working with local communities to make sure if they choose to do that, we'll amplify it. But everyone in every election can get their ballot and return it early at a drop box or through the mail without having to pay for postage. And all of that means we have to show up for folks now so that as soon as the next election hits, and there's elections in Michigan this spring in May, that people know their options to vote, how to exercise them. And then as we lead into the next statewide election in August of 2026, that we're making sure everyone knows their options to vote early, and we continue to see people take advantage of that. The last thing I'll actually say on that is partnerships are key. So faith leaders, business leaders, community leaders, organizations that are working with individuals in the community. When people are showing up to get access to health care or pray or other types of services and support, that's where we can also meet people where they are and say, hey, by the way, there's an election coming up in May. Here's your options to vote. And our office can provide, in partnership with the city, those little sort of information cards and other types of pieces of info to make sure we're inundating people with knowledge on how to exercise their power.
Thank you, Secretary.
Jocelyn, I think we have a question over here.
Yep, I do have a few questions here.
Okay.
When I grab your question, let me know if you want me to read your question or if you'd like to read your own question. I have a question here that says, a lot of the homelessness is tied to opioid abuse. How are opioid reduction funds being used?
I can take it. Yeah, I can take that question, and that's a marvelous question. I was waiting for the tough questions. But you know, when we talk about opioid dollars, and we want to make sure people understand exactly what that is and where that question arises from, The state of Michigan engaged in a lawsuit against big pharma organizations for the opioid crisis. Not fentanyl, but Oxycontin and those type of drugs. The state of Michigan was successful. Many communities like Flint was a benefactor of some dollars. We received about a little bit more than $5 million in our lawsuit settlement. So when we talk about those dollars, how can we execute them in the benefit for those people who are struggling with the disease of addiction? We are working through a process of making sure that we can get recovery opportunities for those individuals first, and then we will look at ways to be able to support housing initiatives for them. About 70% of those dollars of the $5 million goes directly for those type of activities. And so we're putting a budget together now as a municipality and other communities around. But what we like to do is always like to populate money, right? Meaning that if I take $1, if it's from opioid, I want to take $2 more from other sources so we can make a really big impact on it. And so we're looking at ways to be able to put housing developments together. And some of those dollars have been used in the space for veterans suffering with addiction and placing those dollars into those programs and those partnerships to be able to do so. So it's still early. Money is still coming. I think it's a lawsuit settlement. Phil, help me. Phil left. For the next 5 years or so, money continues to trickle in, and we'll look at a structure so we can provide housing in that space using those opioid dollars.
Thank you, Mayor. Other questions?
Ronnie Howard, Tennessee County Community Corrections. Secretary President, thank you very much. Mobile unit is awesome, very accessible, and not just the state, we're doing addresses, right? So we're doing pre-bails on our defendants that are getting arraigned. Addresses are always up to date in our court systems, and we have learned that those departments maybe don't speak to each other, between the Secretary of State, the courts, and the post office, which kind of ties to votes, right?
Yes.
Because then we don't know where to find individuals. So hopefully we'll be able to set a priority to make those type of historic happen.
Yep.
You know, in this next term,
Yep.
I have a couple, is that okay? And getting licenses back for barriers, you know, for justice impacted people, specifically about driving and things when it's drinking and driving, maybe any other substances, so getting some type of guidance out to, and when the timeline is, a lot of humans are not educated in that process, how to do it. And so lastly, Senator, pretrial services for our state, we don't have that currently. We fund that program through our community correction office here, and we are only literally servicing partial of the inmates being put in our jail rooms in those processes. So pretrial services have statewide and other states across the nation, so I really hope we can target that in this next upcoming. Great job, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to read one that was given to me, then I'll go around. Some voters reported challenges with accessibility at polling places. How does the state ensure poll workers are trained on how to assist residents to use the equipment? And what's being done to address poll worker shortages?
Well, we have recruited thousands of folks who are serving as election workers now and continually working with our clerks to make sure where staff is needed, we are able to recruit and also help train new election officials to come, or new election workers to come and help work elections, whether it's early voting or during the actual typical election day process or counting process. So we'll continue to partner with, we hope, faith leaders and others to recruit individuals who can be serving at the polls and making sure that those individuals are fully trained on everything they need to do to open up the power of the vote for every resident, every citizen. On the accessibility piece, it's really important for us to continue, it's actually a top priority in our office, to continue to uptick the physical accessibility of all voting locations, which is critical. And we have done surveys after survey to continually increase the accessibility, moving polling places if necessary to more physically accessible locations, and also working with partners in the field to provide other services, from the ballot machines to making sure if you choose to vote from home, you can have access to those ballots as well and return those without a burden placed on you based on any physical disability. And the last thing I'll say on that is we've also found that language access is critical too for residents and citizens who may speak English as a second language. And I'm really proud of the work we've done to increase translated election materials and advocate for the requirement of translated election materials. It was one of the things in the Voting Rights Act that we had worked with Representative Neeley and others on to bring forth in the House, and we would love to see it come up for a vote during lame duck. We were ready to get it passed, but we'll continue to do stuff like that to ensure the laws are in place to push and support election officials who are working to make sure our polling places and voting writ large are fully accessible.
Yeah, and just to piggyback just a little bit on that, part of what I always like to coin the phrase of courageous conversation that I got from Mr. Patrick McNeil. Part of the courageous conversation that we have to have in environments like this, right, is all of us as a team. One of the things, and I don't want to speak too much on behalf of our clerk, Davina Donahue, but one of the things that I see, and a lot of little challenges that I see, is that when we have election workers, these individuals come in to be trained, right? And we can only work with what we have. We've done everything to induce it, making it more beneficial financially, increasing the dollars and cents that we go in. But those individuals that come in, those are what we have to work with. And in your spaces, in your faith-based education or social organizations, philanthropic organizations, if you see one or two good candidates, maybe you'll give them a little bit of leave of duty and responsibility to be able to go in, to be able to help enhance the quality of service that you receive at the ballot box when we have that. But definitely remember this. Those individuals that come in, we have to train them on a very quick training mechanism to be able to provide a high level of service. And so all of us has a stake in this. So we all have to work very hard to get the best qualified individuals into those spaces so we can train them and then engage them in one of the greatest American rights that we have. Access points, we've opened it up through the benefit of a great Secretary of State saying that we can have drop boxes at our fire stations or different areas where you can take your absentee ballots and drop them in. 9 days early voting. These are great things that we have engaged in and talked about for many years. No reason absentee voting. So we all have the level of educate the community to lift the IQ about voting. And we have to do so with a very critical eye, saying that, let's engage it as partners versus critics. And so I said it, not Davina, not Secretary Benson.
There you go.
They've done in the community for many, many years. I know they would be interested in doing something like that. And I think there's a number of other churches as well. I just don't want us to isolate that only to a few churches. So I just wanted to throw that out. And then the other thing is, I think when it's time for election, everybody gets revved up for that year. And we're doing things all year round during that time period. But on off election years, it's kind of far in between. Has there been a schedule developed to offer voter registration, voter engagement, and voter information year-round? So that it's always in front of us, we're always thinking about it, and we're ready when the time comes.
Yeah, that's such an important point. And our team works with our mobile units and our mock election programs and our College Student Advisory Council, and a number of other things to keep those issues front of mind, because preparing for elections is a full-time job, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. So we're always on duty, and we want voters to be as well. And we want to talk about voting in a broader sense of, not just casting your ballot, but showing up to advise lawmakers in Lansing and fighting for policies that best serve your communities. So linking voting to policy and policy advocacy is a great substantive, impactful way to both move the needle, but also make voting relevant year-round. And in addition to that, we have our Democracy MVP program where people can sign up to be election workers. A lot of those, and we'll be using that throughout the year. We've had, since that was created in 2020, 80,000 people have signed up to be a member of the Democracy MVP program. And you can sign up today at michigan.gov/democracymvp. By doing that, we'll be doing programming and other things with those folks to keep everyone engaged in being prepared for local or state elections in the future so that they can continue to serve and make democracy work for everyone.
And I also want to say during our off season too, I know we get out as state representative and knock doors on our off season just to, stay out there, stay involved, to let you know that things are still happening, even though we're not in the election year. And a lot of times when I'm personally out there knocking on doors, a lot of them say, they don't have any questions, they don't have anything for us. But I continue to knock the doors and we continue to make the phone calls just to let you know that we are out there working in off season. And, the secretary is constantly working. And we want to thank her all the time for doing what she does. She comes over to the house and talk with us in caucus and put out things that she wants, to move forward for her constituents and for the citizens of the state of Michigan. So I don't want you to think that we're not working in our off season. We are continuing to work for you. She continues to work every day very hard for you. So I just wanted you guys to know that.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Representative Neeley. Question here?
Hello, my name is Joe Massey, and I noticed you've done a lot of work for the Veterans Secretary of State, but that information, the benefits that are available, is not trickling down. I know that for a fact, okay, because I'm a veteran, and I just had to dig and do my own personal research to get that information. So, if you could you revisit that?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, thank you for your service, sir.
Yes.
And I really appreciate that feedback. As you know, I'm the wife of a veteran, and so it's personally important to me. My husband served in Afghanistan as the 173rd Airborne Brigade in the Army. Were you Army?
Yes, I'm.
There you go. Yeah, thank you again for your service, and so it's personally important to me. I've seen firsthand how oftentimes support for our veterans community is a mile wide and an inch deep. There are a lot of programs out there, but as you say, they often don't reach where we need to get them to go. We've partnered with the VA and other institutions and the Michigan Veteran Affairs Association, but we want to do more. And one of the ways our mobile office and others can use other tools that we have to do more would be to show up to more places where veterans are gathering and really ensure that you have access to the information you need to get all the resources and services that you're entitled to. So Joshua from my team would love to talk to you more about any specific suggestions you have on what we can do better. No, it's a top priority for us to really make sure we every day work to serve and protect those who've served and protect all of us.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, with no particular reason, I just wanted, as you said, Army, Flint is the home of a 2-star general, Jason Kelly, that's an Army general from Flint, Michigan. I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, never too late to brag on Flint.
That's right.
Secretary Benson, when you first started out, you talked about the Secretary's office. I have 2 issues.
Yes.
One is, during COVID, you guys set up appointments,
Mm-hmm.
and we can understand that the COVID is over.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people cannot make appointments and get there to be able to have their driver's license updated, changed, or get new driver's license. And so I just think that it's important for you to revisit that, because it was so much better when people had the opportunity to go to the Secretary of State's office, when it was available for them.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody don't have transportation.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's not always available. So I would really like for you to revisit that.
Well, I've got good news for you. We have, and about a year or two ago, first of all, as of June 2021, you can walk into any branch office without having to make an appointment, and about 40% of those who visit our branches all across the state do just that. So that is available. And secondly, we've launched 7 mobile branch offices because, as you say, not everyone has transportation to get to a physical branch office. And we have one that is just dedicated to the area of Flint, Saginaw Bay, that will show up wherever you need. And we try to get to every senior center in the state at least once a month. But among other things, if there are locations, festivals, I know we talked about getting to the Flint Rodeo in June.
That's right, yeah.
We'll show up anywhere where people are, so to meet people where they are. And Joshua from my team, maybe we could, if you have specific areas or suggestions, or even churches, we love to partner with as well. To show up at a church on a Sunday, we did a lot of that during the election season to help register folks to vote at those branches. So suggestions of locations of where our mobile branch office can go, we can bring government straight and directly to wherever you are.
My next question, my next issue had to do with this.
Okay.
We were a voting site.
Mm.
And my husband is Bishop Roger Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a church,
Mm-hmm.
Greater Holy Temple. And we had 2 voting precincts there. We were in service at 7 o'clock. People were knocking on our doors because they wanted to vote. The voting precincts have been closed. No one notified us that we were not a precinct any longer. 2 precincts, 21 and 22. That needs to be addressed. I sent letters to State Representative Neeley, who got busy, who helped, because it was too many people. We're on the north side. Not only did they move the precinct, they moved it twice, 3 times. They moved it to the community center, Aldridge Community Center, and then when they got ready to vote on November 5th, they had moved it again to Aldridge Community Center Church. That is unacceptable. And so this city, I'm not the only church. Understand that. We all had issues. And I'm saying that is unacceptable. And we, Del Rico Lord, I even sent him a letter. I sent the mayor, I sent everybody. You know why? Because that is an area of town. And when you read District Flint, the people should have been notified by the city, whoever's responsibility, but I went to Del Rico Lord. That's how some of the people knew. They said, we sent out, everybody don't read. So I even called the news stations, and they got involved. That's unacceptable. And we've got an election coming up in May. Ask yourself, do your people in your community know where their precincts are now? Since there has been redistricting. That is the responsibility of the city clerks. And it needs to be handled now. Because I was very upset to have people knocking in the church trying to vote.
I totally understand that. Thank you. And thank you for everything that you've done to help ensure folks know where to vote and for hosting precincts in the past. That's really great. And I'm grateful to hear all of that. I don't know, Clerk Don, if you want to address any of that as you set the locations of voting facilities and precincts. If you'd like to address that, I want to give you the floor.
Well, what I'll do is this, right? We don't want to get too confused about what goes on and the logic on which things happen, right? This is an explanation, not an excuse, just letting you know what it is. The city of Flint experienced in the last census count a reduction in population. So we're not 250,000 people anymore as it was. So at one time we had 61 voting precincts, that inclusive of absentee voting precincts. Now when you have that level of population, and so you look at a particular formula, and if I'm wrong, help me out, guys. And so when you have a reduction in population, those other numbers also reduce. How the selection goes about where they are, they can have conversations so you can have a better understanding about that. But definitely information is key. Information should be disseminated much, much, much better. But definitely there is a rationale for what happened and the logic of what happens, but how it's dispensed is, I think, Mother Jones, is we talk about it should have been done a little bit differently. And that way we can all come to the table, right? And so sometimes no one knows where to reach out to be able to get that avenue of information or avenue of help. Now, what we need to do is make it very plain about what goes on and how we need to do it. Sometimes people may not agree with it, but definitely that is the rationale why precincts were reduced in a community when population loss is had, right? And it was always on the backside about dollars and cents. Some voting precincts in the city of Flint still only has 3 or 4 voters. right? And so we have to take a look at those pieces and all the input. When I say us, everybody's input is very important to have those levels of dialogue. And I know Clerk Donahue is willing to have those levels of meetings where it's an even exchange of ideas to be able to perfect the system versus a level of perceived indictments and criticism and challenges to overcome at that place. And from us in the faith community, you know, Bishop, we know they talk about in Matthew, we have to go to a person to talk about what the grievance is at least once or twice before we start building that those alliances elsewhere. But definitely it can be worked through. I'm sure that Clerk Donahue is willing to have a dialogue and will facilitate anything that Clerk Donahue wants to do. And I'll buy lunch that day. State representative let me do it. We can do so. So there's nothing that we cannot fix or work around.
Yeah, every setback or failure is an opportunity to improve and get better for next time. So I'm so grateful for you sharing that. And I mean, you know, if I need to be there at 7 a.m. on the next election day, personally telling people where to go, I'm happy to show up and do that. But let's follow up and have a conversation. Yes. Yes.
I have no problem with this city reducing the number of, precincts. But when you do it right before the primary,
yeah,
and then again right before you're voting on something that was as important as the President of the United States, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hear you.
Sorry, just don't cut it right now.
I hear you.
I'd like to see you do something before the voting year itself, because you've known that these precincts should have been cut down. But to do it in August, and the primary was in August?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Secretary, Mr. Chris Martin. I've had the opportunity and privilege to participate GOTB in Flint, Saginaw for the last probably 4 or 6 election cycles, and I had the privilege of joining you in Saginaw, passing here in Saginaw with the mobile office that you put in high school. Flint is a little bit more diverse education than Saginaw because we have a lot of charters. I think we have more charters here in Saginaw, especially with senior populations. And now we see the Flint Comfort Center School also adding in more grades. Is that something that we could get in Flint? Because we were trying to reach high school seniors here in Flint.
Yeah.
But you have, even in the city limits, I think we have 5 high schools within a 2-mile radius that have seniors. And what I saw you at Saginaw High, I thought was very effective to put an actual mobile office there.
Yep.
Where we can not only register people to vote, but also get them involved in the voting process. We were trying to do that here. It was kind of hard because we got 80 seniors over here, 130 seniors over here. I mean, we had like one central location. The principals and superintendents of the area didn't mind working with us to get them to one location. So that is something you can think about.
Yeah.
Flint would be really good.
Joshua will follow up. Let's do it. I think it's great. I think our partnership in Saginaw to make sure every graduating high school student in Saginaw gets an ID upon graduation and all that. It's been really successful, and would love to bring it to Flint. So we'll talk. Yeah.
If I can. And it's so important because I got to be brave. Flint was solidly blue. And myself and Mayor Jones, a lot of us who do the GOTV up here, we got to brag about it because a lot of counties and cities didn't stay blue. And Genesee County and Flint particularly helped Alyssa Slockett and Kristen McDonald Ribbon on people get across the finish line. And we might even got them across even stronger if one of the Jones issues had been addressed, or if we could get our high school students really engaged and make sure that they voted. We got them registered, but we didn't have to be able to make sure they voted. I think we do this in schools because in 26 we need to be solid and blue again. We need to make sure we have a blue government. We need to make sure that the House and Senate races all up and down the spectrum stay blue. And I think if we can have every arsenal available to us, especially for our high school seniors, it would be great. And what we got to do, because we have to work extremely hard. We have to work extremely hard to make sure that Flint stays blue. And I'm just disappointed that some of the other counties that were allowed in blue went red or whatever. And now we got what we got going on now. And I want to just make sure that we put some brakes on the clown show.
Thank you.
Did you have a point you were going to make, sir? As we.
I was just going to follow up with Mother Jones.
Okay.
I know I went to the Secretary of State. They made me schedule an appointment.
Okay, great. Thank you for
I
letting
just
us
wanted
know.
to make that note that yes, they are still forcing you to make an appointment when you walk in and just get something simple done.
Great. Thank you for that
I just
feedback.
wanted to say that part.
Once,
Two,
yeah.
there are some organizations in this room who I know got out and did some work with Get Out the Vote. I know Michigan Faith in Action did some work. North Flint Neighborhood Action did some work. Them folks who work with Percy and Marlene inside of our county jail did some work to get some people voted. I'm not one who really care about people knowing about me, but I need y'all to know my friends.
Thank you. We will.
To know that they
Appreciate
were out
that.
there. Secondly, we also did some work with you guys on getting young people registered. And so I just want to acknowledge that with the help of Ruth Mott, First Presbyterian, we actually we registered kids to vote, but we also went to help them get IDs. So we've been doing some of this stuff already, and I just want to make sure, a lot of times, people who do the work ain't the best at telling people they did some work. I partnered with the mayor, with the City of Flint Civic Leadership Academy, which I was just hoping that he would bring up. But I'm just going to help my brother today because he's up front and let him know that he is partnering with the North Flint Neighborhood Action Council and the Michigan League of Public Policy, where we're actually in the school teaching these young people civics, and we're doing it for adults outside of the school. So some of the things are happening, but, you know, I just want to get the mayor.
Thank you. We all do that.
Thank you for that.
Appreciate your enthusiasm.
I'm gonna try not to forget the four things I want to talk about. So I have an observation, a probable solution, and then 2 questions.
Okay.
So piggybacking off of Mother Jones. One of the observations I made during the 9-day period, well, I'll go back, during the actual election day, long lines. There were people who had got moved, and they were in the long lines, and they didn't know that they were moved. However, because I was